when you go into the US, if you want to enjoy the American dream, real estate financing is a big part of the American dream. We can see it with our president that is doing that all over the US with Trump Towers.
That's how he made his money.
Exactly. That's how most of the big players in the industry in the US have made their money, with leveraging other people's money to buy more and more real estate and create this generational wealth.
Patrick Fondaro here, founding partner at Visa Franchise. Excited to be joined by Yair Benyamini, co-founder at Lendai. We'll talk a little bit about his own path to the US through the E1 visa program, as well as all about his startup that's helping global investors access the US market, biggest real estate market in the world, making financing accessible for hundreds, thousands of families rather, as well as professional investors. So Yair, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity to discuss the urgent topics in the market, what's going on, and help people invest in the US and move here easier.
So why leave Israel? It's a beautiful country, amazing history. I'm sure you have family and friends. That must be tough to leave.
It's first of all, moving to anywhere that is not where you were born is hard. But we saw the opportunity, and the American dream is always out there. We started the company in Israel. The R&D center is still based there. We still have an office over there. But the market is here. And the US economy, the US real estate industry, the mortgage industry, it's unparalleled in any other place. So we understand that, you want to work in real estate. Real estate, I always say, it's a handshaking business. You need to meet the people. You need to meet the realtor. You need to meet the banks. You need to be part of the market.
It's the biggest investment purchase most people will ever make in their life, right?
Exactly. And they want to trust you. We did it when we built a system. We thought, okay, let's automate everything. And then we saw that a client that bought $1 million house, he wants someone to speak with. Even if I can do everything online, he wants to meet someone at least over a Zoom when it was COVID, maybe sometimes now in physical events, because it's a big transaction.
Definitely. And I'm sure you'll talk about, but companies can leverage AI, but that is part of the company and not just the sole.
Exactly. That helps us do everything faster, smoother, give a better borrower experience. But eventually you want to understand the deal. As you said, it's big transactions. Sometimes it's $100,000 home, but we also finance $9.5 million house here in Florida for a client from Thailand. In this case, he's buying it, we're going to hold it for a few years and then sell it. You're not going to buy it sight unseen, have a $9.5 million condo.
Yeah, you're telling me, so you went with the E1 visa that's been around with Israel for many years. Recently, Israel and the US ratified the treaty for the E2 visa. But what was your decision, immigration journey going E1 versus other options? Like I'm sure you could have done the O1 visa or even the green card equivalent EB1A. Why start with the E1?
So when I started the process, I had no clue on which visa. I just knew that we need to open an office in the US. I knew that we already have an established entity in Israel. We already had an established entity in the US because that's how we do business. Technology in Israel and the finance and the operations in the US. So when we reach out to our immigration attorney, say, what are my options? I need to move myself and my family to open an actual
And what time
office.
frame are we talking about?
It was 2020, starting 2021. The entire process was pretty quick. I think it was 3 to 4 months end to end to get the company approved and then myself. And then every time that I needed to move other employees, that was also great. As long as they're coming from Israel, or even if they have an Israeli passport, even if they're not living in Israel at the moment, I could transfer them to the US in a matter of weeks. So,
and is there any limit on the E1 visa?
So I got it for 5 years, and then you need to renew it as long as the company needs to meet special.
And for Israelis compared, I think it's 24 months or 25 months for the E2 visa. So if you could go with either option, a lot of our clients, they could go the E2 because they made an investment in the US, or they do trade with their home country or the country that they have the passport for. So that's good to know. And one requirement for the E1 visa is substantial trade. So how did that go? How much did you have to document? I always hear about $20,000 of trade between the two countries, but
basically, again, and it's not just us. A lot of startups that start outside of the US, building an R&D center, starting the business somewhere else, they need to open a US entity for sales, for operation. And then basically you do intercompany agreements without related to any visa. That's just how you operate.
Yeah.
So then you sell the technology from your company overseas to the company in the US that use the platform to do whatever you do in the US. And then there's an intercompany agreements. I think we closed around 30 loans when we did. So we paid for every loan that we closed. We paid something for the platform that allows us to do that. And I don't think it was, probably a few thousand, $20,000, $30,000. It wasn't, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and I know for the E1 visa too, one of the, it shouldn't just be like a one-off transaction. It should be, repeatable, multiple transactions. So for your business model, it seems ideal where there was 30 loans.
Exactly.
It has a dollar amount fixed each one.
Yeah, because you pay for the service that you give and the platform that you're using for every transaction, because we're a transactional business. But even if you're a SaaS, so every client, you pay some fee. If you know what you want to get at the end, you can build the business in a way that will enable you to do the E1. For us, again, the process was super fast and super easy. You just need to make sure that you meet all the guidelines. But I think it's very underused today, because every time I go to immigration and they look at my passport and say, E1, what are you guys doing? I say, I'm doing, we have a company, we finance foreign nationals buying real estate in the US. And it looks like immigration officers don't really see the E1 so often. So, because every time they're...
Oh yeah, E2 is much more popular. I think it's wildly underutilized. And, if you're already doing business with the United States, it's definitely at least a category to look at. And some of the benefits, as opposed to like the O1 visas, the spouse can work, and
exactly,
it's for a longer tenor. So there's a lot of positives with
and you
the
could bring
E1 category.
More employees from overseas.
And bring in more easier process than the E2.
Exactly.
E2, you can bring over managers or essential employees, but a little tighter scrutiny than bringing over someone with
sales
E1.
People that we wanted to move here, everything that we needed, as long as they have, in this case, Israeli passport, we can move them over here.
That sounds like a great planning, like HR planning, because you can just incentivize people at the local office in Israel. Hey, kick ass, and you want to move to Miami?
In our case, it's Miami. Yeah, not all companies build their U.S. headquarters
Come
in
to
Miami.
Aventura, amazing place, top public schools.
I highly recommend Miami and Aventura specifically. But a lot of companies go to New York, California, but it's the same. The product works.
You move here 2021. What were some of the differences doing business with Americans versus doing business with Israelis?
So there's, in general, when you're building a business in the U.S. and coming from overseas, there's a lot of cultural differences. Israelis are very direct. They will tell you everything.
I like it personally.
No, I grow up like this, so you get all the truth. Americans are much more polite. They will say, I love your idea. Well, in fact, they hate your idea. They will never buy anything from you. So it takes time to understand that. We just saw it now, talking a bit politics. So how you dress to a meeting with the president of the US, it doesn't have to be Trump. If you go dressed like a Middle Eastern Israeli to a meeting with a banker in the US, nobody will respect you. So you need to buy suits, because nobody goes with suits in Israel. So you need to understand the culture. You need to understand the dress code. Those are small things that can make or break a deal. Because if you don't dress appropriately, nobody will do. Exactly.
You don't have instant credibility, or really the first impression matters a lot.
Yeah, and especially in the real estate. You go to New York, you go to Miami, you look at a realtor. They're all top-notch, Armani suits. You need to dress.
They're selling themselves with the house.
Exactly.
It's always the image of the attractive girl or guy.
Exactly. It's on the billboard.
And tell me, in terms of scaling up the business here, you were the first person to come over, and then what's the operation look like right now in Florida?
So now we have operation and sales and marketing here in the U.S. We're expanding more. So we have offices. We're actually a global company. So we started in Israel, then opened in the US. We have Florida, we have Texas, but we have teams in Canada, in Argentina, in India. We're opening in Colombia, in Mexico, because we work with clients from all over the world buying in the US. So we need the presence, what we call global office for local service. So if you're in Israel, we'll talk to you in Hebrew in your time zone. If you're in Argentina, we'll talk to you Spanish in your time zone. And if you're in the US, of course, we have an office, and people that can serve you. So we started building the team. Now we're almost 30 people strong around here, and keep on growing. So, we're hiring all the time if somebody want to join.
30 people globally?
Yeah, all across. And we're hiring adding more loan officers, more sales teams.
And then for the E1 visa, for the US, it sounds like a no-brainer that you're paying. The US is going to receive the tax revenue if someone's physically here, or they're in Israel and there's no tax revenue. So payroll taxes, income taxes, sales tax.
We had one time when we just started the business, we had a deal in Georgia. I think it was the first deal ever we did here. And we called an appraisal because we need to order an appraisal. And said, no, I'm not gonna work with you. I said, why not? We want to pay you for your job. I said, because it's for a foreign national, and I don't want people to buy the properties. And I said, but our foreign national, they're not going to live there. They're going to buy a house, renovate it, rent it, a better house in your neighborhood, and then they're going to pay taxes to the U.S. government because they're making income in the U.S. So they actually make your houses in your neighborhood looks better. They're paying more taxes to your government, so you can get better service, and we help them buy more of that. So why not working with them? But that was the first and only time.
Did that convince him or no?
No, he said, I'm not working with you guys. But since then, we've grown a lot, and that was a very niche problem that we saw.
Well, maybe he'll come around.
I'm sure now, it was in Augusta, Georgia. It's a small town, beautiful place. And I'm sure since then we've built a lot of new houses there. So maybe he's enjoying them.
And that's the thing from the US too. We've helped clients from 65 plus nationalities. There's different Americas.
Yeah.
And we're in Florida. I think Miami area it's something almost like half foreign born.
Miami, I've read somewhere that 66% of the population speak Spanish as their first language. And then you have Russian, Hebrew, Portuguese, and then French Canadians, and then somewhere somebody speaks English maybe. I don't know.
So yeah, there is xenophobia like there is in any country, but there are many places in the United States that you might never encounter that, or maybe just one time.
And Florida, of course, that's the hub. 25% of all foreign nationals that buy real estate in the U.S. buy in Florida. The next one is California, and then Texas and New York. But even California is 11% of the market. So Florida is really the hub for foreign nationals. Everybody want to buy in Miami. Everybody want to live here. But the U.S. is very welcoming, and even when you have the capital to invest, you can get amazing returns. Much easier market to operate in than Europe or Israel or even Canada. So the U.S. market is built for business.
It's also predictable, and it depends on the state, but you can actually kick a tenant out. Where certain markets like Spain, France, could be years that you effectively have a squatter and you're not able to receive your rent check.
Yeah, so that's it. You need to understand where you buy in the U.S. because when you were talking about the U.S., you're talking about 50 states, 3,200 counties, thousands of submarkets, and looking about a landlord-friendly or a tenant-friendly states, generally speaking, and really generalizing here, when the more Republican the state, it's more business-friendly. So if you have a tenant that is not paying in California or in New York, it can take you a year or 2 years. If you have a tenant that's not paying in Texas, 3 weeks later, the sheriff comes with a shotgun and he takes him out. That's just the way that they do business in those states. And for investors, whether you're a domestic or foreign national, you want to invest in those places. There's a reason why more people invest in Texas and Florida than pretty much anywhere else.
And there's net migration. There's a lot of people coming to Florida, coming to the Carolinas, coming to Texas, coming to Arizona.
Especially after COVID, where people understand that, anywhere else they closed everything. And in Florida, they just kept business open. So people that want to still do business need to come somewhere that is still open for business. And Florida just flourished since then.
And Yair, tell me about your business model, B2B2C, which I've seen that employed in other types of businesses and in the software space, for example. But was it always like that, or did you go first to consumer? Tell me about how maybe the nexus. You've told a little bit about your business, but I'd like to hear the.
Yeah. So when we started Lendai, basically we understood very early on that if you're a foreign national, never mind if you're from Canada, from Latin America, from Europe, or actually even if you're an American that lives outside of this state, and you want to buy real estate is a local business. You want to buy in Miami, you need a Miami realtor to help you find the property, put an offer, analyze the deal. You actually manage to take the deal, buy it, you need a Miami property manager to manage your property. You need to file your taxes. You need an American tax advisor or an accountant. You want to establish a U.S. entity. You need an American lawyer. You need an American title. So you have to have boots on the ground to help you. You want to renovate. You need the general contractor in the U.S. So we understand very early on that there's all the entry points to the markets. They're the mandatory way that a foreign national needs to invest in the U.S. So instead of looking for the banker in Australia, the high-tech employee in Israel, or the lawyer in Canada, we said, let's work on the partners in the U.S. and outside of the U.S.
They have the relationships that
they own the business
for many years.
Exactly. So we call it the go-to market strategy. It's a Rome go-to-market. All roads leads to Rome. So it's all roads leads to Lendai. It doesn't matter how you're going to invest in the U.S. You go to a realtor, he works with us. You go to a property manager, he works with us. You go to a broker, he works with us. So everything you will go to, we sit on all the entry points to the market.
I told my brother and business partner the same thing for Visa franchise 5 years ago, where we started getting double referrals, where there would be a wealth manager that
we see
would
it all the
refer,
time,
and they also already saw a YouTube video, or they Googled and saw us,
exactly.
or a Google ad.
We see it all the time.
That's just instant credibility.
And you see, if somebody goes to his realtor and send it to you, sometimes they don't know because we have a platform that is half white label. So they go to a realtor and say, I have an offer for you. They go to a broker and say, I have an offer to you. We in the system see the same guy from two places. And then, first come, first serve. Yeah. We'll give him the loan.
We'll add the link. I mean, if anyone wants to get financed with Lendai, and maybe I don't know if it's possible, we could give them some money back if they go through our link.
Yeah, we have a white label solution, and Visa Franchise has access to it. You can go submit whether you want a pre-approval, a refi, a new purchase. We have basically built everything that an American investor can get, you can get as a foreign national through the Lendai platform, and making basically leveling the playing field for foreign investors.
And how do you deal with, because I had clients before we met that I would refer to local banks, and they had to put up crazy deposits in terms of 35% down plus, and the rates were often a lot more than if they had a green card or U.S. citizenship. How are you able to offer better terms essentially than other banks?
In credit, it's basically always risk mitigation. So when you are an American bank, you have no idea what's the foreign national. You don't know, he's not earning in the U.S. dollars. He's not living in the U.S. He has no credit score in the U.S. So you, by definition, say, okay, he's a higher risk. When you're a bank in the country of origin, if you look at them in the country of origin, you see it's a great client. They have good credit scoring outside of the U.S. They have great liquidity. They own businesses. But if you're a foreign bank, you say, I don't know anything about the property they want to buy. So what we built is what we call Lendai Global Underwriting. So we have a system that underwrites the property in the U.S., looking on the property income, the market, the value, the legal and the physical condition of the property. And then say, do we want to finance this property? Is it a good property to finance? On the other side, we look on the data in their country of origin, said, no related to the property they want to buy, is this someone that I want to finance? What's their source of income? If they have credit score in their country of origin, what's their liquidity? And then we combine that into one decision-making mechanism. Do we want to finance Patrick from France for this property in Georgia? The property is good and he's good. Why say no to a good client? So we mitigate the risk by looking on both sides so we can give much better offers.
And is there any restrictions in terms of nationalities beyond, the normal North Korea, Iran, or do you lend at pretty much everyone?
It's pretty much, as long as they're not, in the OFAC list, so we can do that. Most of what we do on the underwriting depends on the product. We'll look on the properties in the U.S. So as long as there's no red flags, their source of funds is clean, and we'll check it that it's drugs money or terror funding money. There shouldn't be any problem. We have a very high rate of approval, and we can basically know based on an initial questionnaire, is it a go or no go in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, can you break it down? I want to talk about professional investors, or even people that, for lack of a better term, have a side hustle, or they're investing in flipping properties, or they're doing that full time. But how about for our clients at Visa Franchise that are looking to purchase their primary home? What can they expect? They're moving to the west coast of Florida. They've identified an amazing townhouse, $500K. How much cash do they need, and what can you do, rough expectations? I know it changes. Yes. It could change a lot in the next 6 months when
it's pretty stable, and it's actually getting better. Prices may be changed because markets can go up, can go down, but the general terms are the terms. So on a purchase, we can get up to 75% loan to value, which means a down payment of 25%. If it's a house, and a condo, we usually can get to 70 to 75%. Depends on that. And then this process itself is very straightforward. We mainly look on the property. We're looking on the income that will be generated from this property. If it's a rented income, if it's an Airbnb property, a lot of foreign nationals buy an Airbnb. We'll look on the potential Airbnb income from this property. And of course, if it's going to be a second home, we have a product that we call Global DTI, Global Income Based, where we understand, let's say they buy a $1 million house in Aventura, and they're not going to rent it. That's going to be...
They're going to come a couple months of the year.
Exactly, like a second home and stuff like that. So we will evaluate their global income. We'll look on their income in Canada or in France or anywhere in the world. and we'll look on their global debt to see if they have any debts in the US, maybe their primary residence where they actually live most of the year. And we calculate what's called debt to income ratio. And as long as the debt to income ratio with the mortgage is less than 50%, which is in 99% of the case, that's what it is, we'll finance the deal. We can give rates that are pretty much the same as American in a very streamlined process. It takes around 21 to 45 days to close. Our fastest closing were actually 13 days on a 30-year loan and 5 days on a bridge financing. But let's say it takes around 30 days to close usually.
When does it make sense, Yair, for our Visa franchise clients? And I mentioned we've had over 100 clients that have gotten the E2 visa through some real estate related activity. It could be real estate property management. It could be fixing and flipping homes, real estate private equity. But for those that are coming abroad, whether they're coming from Canada or wherever they're coming from, is there some sort of, when is it too early to start? Like, can they already get kind of pre-approved from a personal standpoint, or do you really need to have that property to start the process?
So pre-approval we can get just based on them. So let's say I'm Canadian, I want to start buying in the US somewhere in the next 3 to 6 months. I can get you pre-approved. Great. More than that, when you go to a US realtor, say, hey, I want to start buying properties in Georgia, the first question I ask you, are you pre-approved by a bank? And if you say no, and I've asked it a lot of realtors, I said, I have 5 clients, 3 of them pre-approved, 2 or not. Who do you think I'm going to look for properties for?
Exactly.
Of course, the ones that are already pre-approved. Because again, I don't want to
go. Margins have gone down too for realtors.
Exactly. So you can come to us. We ask a few questions, give you a pre-approval. You basically understand your buying power. And then you go and search the properties when you know how much you can buy. Once you actually find a property, you can send it back to us. We take all the information, give you a term sheet. This is how much you can get on this specific property. Here are all the numbers. You want to put an offer and move forward or not?
What would you say, is a good place to get started? Like, do you have a partner portal? Does it make sense to just go on Zillow? If you're watching this from Canada, how can you start getting your feet wet looking at real estate deals?
So the first thing I would start getting your pre-approval.
Yes.
Start understanding how much buying power do you have, because you can go on Zillow and say a $2 million property, but you can buy it. Or you can see a $100,000 property, which looks great, but maybe it's in a bad market. So you want to understand, maybe you can buy something in a better market. You want to understand the guidelines. So we don't finance properties of less than $100,000 value. Some people love to invest in those markets in Ohio. Me personally, something that looks great on paper only stays on paper. When you buy in those hard neighborhoods, places that you don't want to even visit.
Yeah, you can legally kick out the tenant, but
but you will not go to the neighborhood because it's you don't know the market. And some people buying those dreams home. I can buy a U.S. house in $50,000. If you don't know how to manage those type of places, you will not survive. So one of the big advantages actually in what we do, we're not just giving you how much you can borrow. When we come to the transaction, we actually do due diligence. As you said, we put most of the money.
Yes.
You put 25%, I put 70%.
You're going to make 75%. Sure that you're going to get your money back.
We know how to do the underwriting, the property, on the neighborhood, on the legal status. And I always say, if we say no to a deal, it doesn't mean it's a bad deal, because it could be just too risky for our profile.
But you can give them the feedback.
But if I say yes to a deal, 100% this is a good deal, because I check the market, I check the rent, I check the property.
You're not an equity investor, but you're allocating 75%.
I'm not just putting the money in the deal. I'm putting, my resources into that. So if I say yes, it's a good deal for you guys to buy.
Yeah, it's a big check.
And we had a lot of times in our history, borrowers said, it's a good property, I want to buy this neighborhood. Saying, hey, look, the neighborhood is declining. The realtor that just sold you that didn't tell you that the neighborhood is declining. Or you thought the property is great, but hey, there's a lien on the property, and you didn't even know that somebody didn't pay taxes here. So if you want to buy it, you're going to get stuck with the lien. Or there's termites, or there's problems in the infrastructure because we send someone to see the property. Again, a lot of them buy sight unseen. So we a lot of times solve problems before they actually occur because we know what to look for.
Yair, so as I mentioned, we've helped over 100 clients obtain the E2 visa for real estate related businesses. And it could be a mix where you're doing some property management for short-term rentals. I have one client I interviewed recently. He manages 1,000+ doors in LA County, which is wild. He invested in a franchise, I think it was about 7 years back. So we've seen it all, but we have a lot more interest from Canada and other countries, people that want to come to the US. Maybe they've gotten their feet wet. They've invested in some properties. They flipped some homes, And now they want to be here, and that's what they want to do, and they want to be allocating their time, and they want to obtain a visa. So, we've worked with some groups that I've introduced you to that have kind of a white glove service where they have the general contracting license, they can source the properties, work with you on the financing. So we have those options for those that are wealthy folks looking to put 300K plus equity. But then there's also folks that they don't have as much money and they want to invest 150K to buy a few doors and do some light renovations and be eligible for the E2 visa. So with that context, Yair, how can you help E2 visa investors that are looking to get into real estate in Florida, Texas, and other states and make money for them and their families?
So we actually built, in 2024, we built a special program for that, our fix and flip program, which is designed for foreign nationals. So they could be first-time investor, never invested in the US. We can still finance them. Of course, the more experience they will get, or if they partner with someone more experienced, they will get even higher leverage. It starts from 60, 70% financing. It can go all the way to 90% financing.
Wow.
So you can buy the house almost with no equity at all. And we finance 100% of the renovation. And then whatever rest from the purchase, we allow them not just to strategize better, because we evaluate the project. They say, I'm going to buy this in $100,000, I'm going to renovate in 50, and it's going to be worth 250. We'll evaluate that. We'll tell them, is it actually going to be worth 250? Exactly. And if it's a big project, we even sometimes do like a feasibility report. You're going to do a big renovation, a hard, $100,000 property, and you're going to renovate in $80,000. It's almost like a new construction. So we evaluate the entire project and tell you, is this feasible? What you're saying, the market is actually where you think it is. So we're not just helping them to evaluate the opportunity and then operate the transaction. We help them to do that with much less equity. So if you have the $300,000, you can do $1 million of properties or projects or even more. If you have 150, you can do the $400,000, which is enough for do what you need. So we're lowering the entry point to the market because you can use other people's money. We are the other people.
Yes.
Which when you go into the US, if you want to enjoy the American dream, real estate financing is a big part of the American dream. We can see it with our president that is doing that all over the US with Trump Towers.
That's how he made his money.
Exactly. That's how most of the big players in the industry in the US have made their money, with leveraging other people's money to buy more and more real estate and create this generational wealth.
Yair, so how can people obtain the E2 visa by leveraging financing and going through the fix and flip method in real estate?
So as you explained, there are companies like yourself that help people obtain the E2 visa through the project, but then you have to bring a lot of money from home. And you have a lot of lack of knowledge because you don't know how to manage the project. And one of the problems with contractors, I think, all over the world, not just in the US, they always want to get more money before they did the job. When we're involved, not just we're bringing most of the money to the deal, so you can start the project with much less equity, but there's a draw schedule. So let's say you buy property for $100,000 and you have $50,000 of repairs. You want to do new windows, new doors, maybe new roof. When you start the process of renovation, we're not going to give the contractor, hey, here's $50,000, go do whatever you want to. Every stage that he finishes, you say, okay, you put the doors, we'll send someone, we'll see the doors are in place, everything is operated. Now here's the money for the doors. Now you finish the windows, we'll send someone. We have two options. One is with an app that somebody, you can go into the property, take pictures live, with geolocation. So we know it's from today and from the right property. We've seen it all. Don't worry. People are trying to picture a different house. So it's either we do that or we send someone to the property, and the GC will not get his money before we know that the job is done. So
again, you pay the GC directly, or
we'll release the money to you as the borrower, and then you pay to the GC.
LLC.
But again, we're putting another layer of security because he said, no, GC is always, I have to pay my employees, I have to pay my suppliers, I need the money today, I need more money in advance. So no, there's a process. There's a bank or Lendai is a company that is financing this transaction. Show us that you did the job, you will get paid, but you're not going to get paid for something that you didn't complete.
Yes.
Which create a much more certainty in the process. So you can enter with less equity, it will give you more certainty on the project, and we help you make a more successful project at the end.
And do you connect people, whether it's through formal or informal channels, to GCs in different areas, or real estate professionals that can be like the project manager?
So we actually have, as you said, we are a B2B2C. So we have a lot of over 450 real estate professionals across the US. So a lot of time people are coming to us from just online or from a partner that is not doing real estate. He's
like us.
doing loans, exactly.
It's not our prime business, but we have all these global investors moving here.
But we're seeing all those transactions. We see who are the GCs that completed the project. We see who are the realtors that bring the good transactions. So,
and that aren't finagling you, that get the deal done and the releases.
Because we sell, and I can tell you that there are partners that we worked in the past and we stopped working because the client sell a property in $150,000. And when we send our appraisals, it comes back in 120. I said, why are you saying, no, the client is willing to pay. Yes, but that's not how the property is actually worth. Again, they're leveraging their knowledge of the market when the foreign investor doesn't know what's happened.
Yes.
So when we're in the middle, again, we said we will finance 70% of this deal, but based on 120. And then, and we told the client the property worth 120, don't buy it for 150.
Yes.
So we fired some of our partners along the years. And the one that we kept, which are honest and very good people, we have what we call Lendai matchmaking. So if you come to us and say, I have money, I want to leverage, I want to buy property in the US, but I don't know where or how or with who, I can connect you to a designated partner of Lendai to help you find the right property, and then we'll finance it.
And this is why I'm really excited with the Lendai partnership, because we've helped clients invest in maybe 6 different real estate property management franchises. And then we've had clients that did real estate PE or fix and flipping type businesses. But it hasn't been, outside of property management franchise, we haven't had like a really tight streamlined solution. And I think with your group, we could kind of put our heads together and, we handle the visa part and we kind of operate as a general contractor. A private banker said, "You guys are a general contractor. You might do the business plan in house, or you bring in the writer. You have the attorneys." And I can relate to that, where the attorneys can get at capacity, and then we cut it off, or they don't do a good job. We bring in other attorneys. So
exactly. You're the quarterback. Making sure that everything runs to the right place and the ball gets to his goal. But our goal is to help people create wealth through real estate in the US in an easy way. The way to do it is work with professionals and work with systems that already work in hundreds or thousands of times. So you're not the first time trying this system. So you built your own system, we built our own system. When you combine that, you have a streamlined process.
Yair, any pending thoughts for global investors making their first investment into US real estate, or for those that are entrepreneurs moving to the US, bringing their family here?
So the U.S. and this bigger man than me said, never bet against the U.S. The U.S. market has so many opportunities. Whether it's you want to invest in a small single family, or you want to, we have clients that buying multi-families of 100 units. There's something for everybody. There's 350 million people in the U.S. As we said, 50 states, 3,200 counties. There's something for every strategy. So decide what's your goal. And then there's a way to get to this goal with the U.S. real estate market.
I love it. And Yair, you mentioned 21 days to 45 days. I would love to crank these E2 visas in that time frame, but depending on the consulate, it's going to depend a lot in terms of the interview. We had approval recently in Paris that was less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
Toronto was 3 weeks, but now it's ballooned to 2+ months. We have clients waiting there. So it's kind of a moving target where we tell clients 3 to 6 months from the time they engage us till the time they have their E2 visa in hand. And with that, we're working together with the filing attorney, our team on the business plan to get everything set, as well as, for the real estate module, if they're going the franchise path or they're going with the fix and flip, one of the mutual partners, working alongside them to really document all this investment.
But you do it parallel, or you need to finalize the franchise or finalize the real estate, and only then you start?
All in parallel. I mean, generally for the E2 visa, if someone's coming from Toronto, Canada, they should show, at least 80K has been spent, and then maybe there's another 20K, 30K in working capital. And as it relates to real estate, we ideally want to see 80, 100K plus spent on renovations. So most of these consulates generally won't count that part that went to equity towards the property. So it's nice that you do those draws, the contractors, because that's extra documentation that this was for the door, this was for this draw went after that. And I think the magic number is kind of 100K. So it could take 4 months, but maybe it takes a year, and they have a really good strong case going in where they've spent 150K on renovations across 3 properties. And I think, echoing your point, you should try to spend as much time here in the U.S. as possible. So, spending your summer here, trying to work,
learn the market,
Yes.
learn where you want to live, because you can, and that's another thing, that you can invest in one market and live in another market.
Exactly. You have a lot of clients.
Yeah, you want to invest in Ohio maybe, but I'm not sure you want to live in Ohio.
For sure.
You want to live in Miami, but maybe you cannot afford, doing fix and flip of $1 million houses. Maybe you want to do it on a $200,000 house in Georgia or $100,000 houses in Ohio.
That's well said. Yeah, we have a lot of clients that are investing in one market, and maybe the business is a 2-hour drive or a 2-hour plane ride, and they'll go quarterly, monthly, whatever the appropriate time frame is for that said business.
Yeah, it's well said. You buy when you get the returns you need, not where you want to live. So
Yes.
you can rent or buy wherever you want to live, but you invest where the returns make sense.
And that's one thing. I'm a big advocate of renting first. For your primary property, and then over time you can eventually purchase.
Yeah, because you don't really know where you're gonna land. You start in one place, and as we said, maybe your kids don't like the school, maybe
Yes.
you don't like the neighbor. So renting first, it doesn't make you can always take your things, move to another place. Sometimes it takes a year or two until you settle, you find your community.
Your family grows.
Maybe
your in-laws move in, your parents start spending time with you from abroad. So
exactly.
a lot of variables.
What's the right size of a house, what's the neighbor that I want to be, which community is fit for myself. It takes time.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Well, Yair, absolute pleasure, and thanks for opening about your journey to the U.S., your business and everything. And it's incredible. In less than 4 years, you've gone from just a couple employees, 30 employees
we've
globally.
been working hard, and it's been a hectic 6 years almost from when we started building the Lendai. Then we had COVID, and we had the interest rate, so wars across the world.
Yeah.
But we're here, we continue to grow, and we continue to serve the global community.
Well, appreciate you helping our clients at Visa Franchise, and for anyone that's looking to make money in real estate in the U.S., they can be an excellent partner for you and helping with all the financing aspects, and we'll include that link. So you go through our link, Lendai will set you up, free consultation with a financing specialist. They'll get you pre-approved, and they'll take good care of you coming through Visa Franchise. Links in the description. If you have any doubts, email me at patrick@visafranchise.com. Through Lendai, we'll help you with your U.S. financing needs for real estate here. Thanks.
Thank you. And yes, you're welcome to start your American dream with U.S. real estate and with our financing.